I would like to thank all of our presenters so much. It was, as always, a lot of food for thought, and I have to take advantage of being the only person with a microphone right now to ask 2 questions of 3 people. First for Tomasz. I'm fascinated by the subject of your study, and I wonder if you could tell me what languages he was proficient in.
Oh, yeah, that's a very interesting thing because so during the research, I also work with the publishing house and we try to do new editions of his old works. And of course, speaking of a method, we need to update the language because back then, when you wanted to play, let's say, down bow, it wasn't called down bow. It was, so in German, he was using German. Today you say Abstrich, but it was Herunterstrich. It was so you need to update everything about the method so that it's updated. His first works were written in Russian, French, and German. So that was actually quite surprising also for me. Yeah.
And we assume he had native Czech and must have gotten by in English by the time he got to Boston, right?
Exactly. He could speak fluently 5 languages at least, yeah.
Underachiever. Thank you so much. My second question I would like to ask of Yaroslav and Yaroslav. I have a son who's interested in science, but he's never been interested in coding. And I wonder if each of you could say something about what would be the limitations of someone who was interested in the same subjects as you are interested in, but could not write his own code.
I would say the good start is, I think like coding is at these days very a fundamental part of the research, but it's also like thing that you can learn in any age. There are plenty of like academies even for adults, which you can take and you can you can take it online. There are like in-person and online services that can teach you how to code, and step by step you can adapt the skills that are necessary to ask the questions and get answers. Because yeah, I would say also like one more thing, in the days where I grew up, we really needed like to go to those like fat books and like read manuals and read every single page. But these days, with the fast pacing improvement of artificial intelligence, you can ask a lot of questions to like ChatGPT, which many of you probably use, and it can help you to overcome the struggles that made our path like difficult. But like these days, it can be much faster.
Thank you. And other Yaroslav.
Yeah, I agree. I sometimes teach graduate students who come in and do not have coding skills, and they acquire them. Now, I agree that nowadays it's actually much faster because a lot of the tools actually allow you to combine like very high-level language, which is almost which is very easy to associate with just like the way how you think and how you write a mathematical model in our case, with actual code. Like when I started, we actually had to like code everything in the so-called machine code, right? And like use cassette players to store everything, otherwise everything got erased. And later on, this became easier and easier. So nowadays, with the help of like online tools, this is definitely much faster. Exactly as Jarda was saying, like nowadays, ChatGPT can actually write pieces of code for you. You just give them verbal, you just give the AI like verbal instructions, and it can help. So you do not need to memorize all the details of the language and actually like produce very quickly. So nowadays it's very easy.
Thank you. That's very encouraging. All right, I'm going to throw the mics open. Who has a question for any of our presenters? I see one in the back.
Well, thank you for such great presentations. I will have another question for Jaroslav. the mathematician and the financial advisor or economist. Thank you. So we have witnessed some craziness on the market lately, and I would love to dig to the juice. What is a professor at NYU got to say about the stability of the dollar and the banking system nowadays? And then I have a second question for Michaela, but this is first.
Okay, so I have to admit that I'm not a financial analyst who would dig through like the newest and latest data on like everyday basis. That's not my job. So in general, when you think about like some people bring up the comparison of nowadays and what has happened 15 years ago during the financial crisis, these are really incomparable situations. Nowadays, like the whole financial architecture was improved following the financial crisis. So I would say that nowadays we are in a much better shape in terms of like the stability of the overall financial sector. So I would be much more confident. But as I say, you may want to ask like analysts whose daily bread this actually is.
I would love to find one and ask him how to compare the situation to the 30s. But thank you for your answer.
So as for the 30s, the last year Nobel Prize was awarded exactly for some of the work by Ben Bernanke, right, who actually worked on the analysis of the 1930s and comparisons to the current time, right? And so he actually brought a lot of the wisdom to the Federal Reserve, and when he served as chairman.
So it looks good?
According to him, definitely better. Yeah.
Thank you. The second question is for Michaela. I will have to introduce myself for this question because I'm an acupuncturist or doctor of acupuncture. My goal is to bring natural medicine all over the world. I have worked relentlessly for the last 10 years to bring it to the Czech Republic. I also am the retired president of the Acupuncture Society for the state of New York. So with this loaded question is, what's your next step in longevity? And I have seen some amazing research with acupuncture when the length of telomeres is actually extending. That means extending of lifespan. So what is your next step?
Thank you so much for this question.
I just wanted to interrupt him. And a former 6-minute presenter.
And I have also presented 6 minutes in here. Thank you.
Thank you. That's amazing. I hope you were not as nervous as I was, because I was literally shaking. This type of presenting usually my husband or other people from our organizations are doing, so thank you for your patience here. So this is absolutely excellent. The information about the telomeres, I haven't been informed about that, but obviously acupuncture is something absolutely incredible, and we are integrating acupuncture in almost all our processes. And telomeres can be, if telomeres can be extended by acupuncture, and then basically, the genetics, as far as telomeres go, everything is coded. When we are born, we have the code inside of how fast they're going to get shortened. So with certain supplements, you can stop the shortening, and then with acupuncture, you can extend it, which is absolutely fascinating. So as far as the longevity, it's education. And that's really our goal, because so many people don't know what we just mentioned here, and there's so much information we need to share, and that's really where we are heading. Longevity is not only the mechanics of what can we do, but longevity also many times lies here inside. Our system, our society is so used to, going to doctor to answer the questions, which is wonderful, but that's happening only at the moment when we already have issues we're dealing with. But we kind of need to start to reverse that whole system, and we need to start acting before, something is happening. And I've been lately experiencing a lot of amazing results with any type and form of ancestral healing and healing of the lineage of what was going on in our families and how is that affecting me as a person right now. And obviously, it sounds a little bit like science fiction. It sounds a little bit like what the coding for me is science fiction, but it's not. So many answers, pretty much all the answers, are inside. What we are trying to do is we're trying to reveal how you can access that. And so education is my goal, and I'm going to do my very best to teach adults and to teach also children to be able, from the very young age, access the secret within. Thank you.
I have one quick follow-up. What is Oya?
You mean like the translation of it?
Yeah, what does it stand for?
Oh, okay. So Oya is actually the former. Well, Oya is the goddess of transformation, the African goddess of transformation, and the reason why we've selected this name, the whole name of the organization, is actually Oya New Earth, because we're trying to create a new earth for people. It's kind of needed nowadays. We are talking about the new normal, right, after COVID. So we would like to translate the new normal to new earth, and Oya stands for transformation. The reason why we selected it is because Africa is a huge pool of our research, as well as Amazon forest, and that's where our research for past 12 years was established and founded together with the Israeli University, with the Jerusalem University. And so it was kind of a natural decision for us to name our organization according to the goddess of transformation. And we hope, we're very hopeful for the upcoming years, even though the financial situation is what it is. But sometimes, falling on the rock bottom is actually the best thing what can happen, because you can rise from the ashes much, much better than, where you were before. So let's just keep that hope up.
Hi, my name is Joseph, and I have a question for Mr. Borovička here. Actually, couple of questions. Do you drink Borovička?
So actually, my wife is Slovak, and we got married in Slovakia.
So you do.
And so and my wife actually took my name, and we are like subject of repeated jokes whenever we come to Slovakia, because obviously the last name Borovička there resonates very, very well. Yeah, but I do drink Borovička, yes.
So another question, have you ever been pulled over in Slovakia and the officer would look at your driver's license and he sees Borovička? Really? Happened to you?
It actually happened after we got married. Like the next day, we were paying the bill for everything, and they wanted our IDs, and we gave them our IDs. And in the first moment, they thought that we are joking and that we are just going to run away as cheaters. So yes, not in the context of like the police. Yeah.
And the last question, serious. How do you see the future of cryptocurrency? And the sub-question is, have you ever put your money in a cryptocurrency? You don't have to answer that.
For me personally, this is a very interesting architecture, like in terms of like, and I think the architecture itself, like for instance, for decentralized storage of information, is actually very useful. As a currency, I'm very pessimistic, and I think it's a net social loss in the moment.
Okay. No more questions.
Someone else maybe has a question for any of our presenters. Don't be bashful. Whoa, right here.
Thank you. I have two questions, one for Viktor and one for Pavel, and they are a bit similar. So, Pavel, I wanted to ask you, here I am, what was like the biggest challenge during the renovation, like something that really gave you lots of headaches? And then for Viktor, I will ask also, what is like one topic or some of the issues that it's really hard to find agreement for within European Union, within that like small group already, something that, where is Viktor? Oh yeah, yeah, so something that it's really hard to reach agreement about, and what do you do when you cannot reach agreement? So these are like sort of similar, so we can start with Pavel.
Okay, that's pretty easy answer. The biggest challenge during the whole renovation was dealing with my bosses from the ministry. Because they always, they changed, they came and changed the project, and then returned back to the ministry. They were replaced with somebody else, and this person came and say, what are you doing here? Change it. And we had to deal with this. So a couple of changes were like reduced, and actually a couple of changes were accepted, and these changes were the problems we have right now. So please let professionals do their jobs, and no politician or diplomats or anything like that should, talk to something that they are not understand. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry.
But before we get our next answer, I was just advised that I should maybe gloss for the few people in the audience who don't know what Borovička means. Borovička is a Moravian and Slovakian juniper-flavored distillate. It's basically Slovakian gin. So that's why it's a funny name to have. Continue.
Well, so question about the unity of European Union and challenges when European Union is not united. First of all, I would like to say that it's surprising how EU is unified. It is living in this country and seeing the big differences between the states. Here in the United States, I must say that EU on some elements, especially on economics, is more unified than the United States themselves. Of course, the EU is not unified on the main things that form the unified state, which is common currency, common foreign policy, common defense. There still are some challenges ahead of us. But I will not go into too many details. There are, of course, some topics where the EU is not unified and where the most challenging from the files I'm responsible for, it's a nuclear disarmament. Weapons of mass destruction are considered as bad, of course, but countries reached agreements that, they will get rid of chemical weapons, they will get rid of biological weapons. We have treaties, international treaties, binding treaties, which ban those weapons. But with nuclear weapons, it's a bit different story. And there is a process through the so-called Non-Proliferation Treaty, NPT, which is sort of stuck. And some countries try to create a parallel track through international treaty on prohibition of nuclear weapons. The problem is that the treaty is signed and ratified by countries that don't possess nuclear weapons, and those that do own them, they are against the treaty. And we have in the EU some split, because not all EU members are members of NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization. And North Atlantic Treaty Organization has the nuclear deterrence in its security strategy. But countries that are not in NATO, namely Austria, Ireland, Cyprus, Malta. They want the nuclear weapons being banned entirely through another process than the NATO country wants. So this creates quite a visible split within the European Union, and while we do have some common language how we address this issue, if it is dealt by the United Nations, but it's a bit superficial statements, and when we come into the details or voting on resolutions, you can very visibly see the split between the EU countries on elements related to nuclear disarmament and nuclear non-proliferation.
Thank you. Another question for any of our presenters?
If we don't, I have a few words. I would like all the former alumni of 6 Minutes to stand up.
Come on, don't be shy. We've already fingered a couple of you.
Take a bow.
Come on.
Katka. These are all brilliant, other brilliant 3 minutes, right? All brilliant checks, you actually. And sorry you missed them, missed their presentation. Maybe they'll come back.